Hello, all. It is a great pleasure to be here again. This is the third episode for Cannabis Thinking Talks season 2023. This is the first time we're doing it in English, so we will be providing subtitles in Portuguese and I believe Spanish as well. Let's see. But we're here. My name is Alex Lucena, by the way. I'm an associate partner and chief innovation officer here at the Green Hub. I'm here with my buddy Marcelo Greco. We're both in São Paulo at our studio here at Fique in São Paulo. With us virtually from my hometown, Rio de Janeiro, we have Clara Pires that will be introducing herself in just a while. So São Paulo, Rio, for those out from outside Brazil, obviously the two main business capitals of Brazil. And having the pleasure here to host this evening with us. First of all the way from Colorado, USA, Roy McFarland, a new friend. He'll be introducing himself as well. But Roy, pleasure having with you, and even more pleasure being able to, briefly start working with you for the last couple of weeks. Looking forward to doing a lot of business together. Looking forward, and so it's a pleasure. I mean, you'll be announcing yourself in just a while.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say I appreciate you doing this in English. My Portuguese is terrible, so thank you.
It's a pleasure doing it in English, actually, the world language. Well, we have to be careful with the Chinese. The Chinese are starting some strong competition, not just on the capital side of things, but also in terms of the language. But anyways, why did I say that anyhow? So Bradley, the other friend here, new friend, Bradley Bernard, also from Beehive, and a co-founder for this company that we've been, slowly but surely, approaching to the Green Hub and, of course, to Brazil and to the Latin America market. Bradley from Texas, how are you, sir? Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm living the dream. It's so happy to be here, and thank you, Alex, for putting this together. And very much looking forward to our continued work together.
Perfect. So, for those who have just joined us today, we will be talking about the international perspective of the cannabis industry. And when I say international perspective, we're looking here for case studies, for best practices, lessons learned, challenges, what are the opportunities. This is what this talk is all about, okay? And so having that said, and having introduced myself very quickly, I will pass the ball here. And it would be a football, not the American football, but the soccer ball over here in Brazil. That's the way we're going to do this. But I'll pass here to my buddy and my associate partner, Marcelo, with, allowing him to introduce himself. And of course, I would say, Marcelo, you've been a pioneer in this market here in Brazil. Tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about, how you got involved in the industry in the first place. Let's get personal here in this first round of conversation. So, Marcelo.
First of all, thank you, Bradley. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Clarice, for being here with us. This is going to be a nice chat. Well, I'm one of the co-founders of the Green Hub. I've been around for 7 years now. It's been a pleasure working in cannabis. It's been hard, but at the same time, really, really nice. It's challenging, but I see Brazil growing a lot. I got into it, by hearing the mothers speak out, calling for help here in Brazil. So a group of mothers needed help to get in touch with CBD, and me and a group of friends started talking about it, bringing information, bringing data, bringing content, telling what was happening in the US, traveling to other places. So it was a little bit slow at the beginning. I had to learn a lot in order to bring information back to Brazil, but it was challenging to help the group of mothers to understand they were doing nothing wrong, that people were doing similar things in other parts of the world, that other parts of the world, were doing a really good job in different ways, but a really good job in bringing back cannabis to the table. So we kind of got into to help, but without really knowing what we're going to do. And 7 years later, I see it was a good choice. We see Brazil going from, a couple of dozen doctors to over 3,000 doctors already prescribing and understanding cannabis. We see, 7 years ago, it was, a couple of brands, 5-6 brands operating in Brazil. And now we see over 180 companies operating in Brazil and working, some form of project in cannabis, mainly with products. We've raised the bar. We see Brazil raising the bar in quality, in understanding, in studying the product. Now we see the mothers not needing, to worry about not having access. Of course, they have other problems with prices and things like that. The price of the treatment. But if if you're able to get the product, at least it reaches your house and it doesn't get stuck at customs like it used to do. Much better quality products. We have a change in our government, so we see things moving a little bit faster. We see hemp coming into the business as well. So I'm really happy I got into the business 7 years ago.
And you lived in Boston for 8 years?
I lived in Boston for 8 years, so I have the opportunity to...
In Paraguay as well, right?
In Paraguay
You've been
as well,
around Latin
exactly.
America.
Exactly.
Hablo español muy bien.
Un poquito, sí. I need to make my Spanish better, anyways.
Me too.
But I'm having the opportunity now to always go back to the U.S. to understand the market, to see everything that's happening over there, Canada, around Latin America. I've been able to visit a lot of countries, attend a lot of shows, a lot of cannabis shows. So it's been great, yeah. It's great to be here with Roy and Bradley and learn more and exchange experiences here.
Super, thanks. And since Marcelo mentioned the mothers, I guess that's how it all started all over the world, right? In the U.S. as well. Roy in Colorado, I remember Charlotte Webb, for example. It kind of like same way started here in Brazil. And for those who don't know, there's a documentary called Ilegal, Unlegal, available on YouTube, that was done, that tells the story of what happened in Brazil from, day one legalization here in Brazil back in 2015-ish,
Yeah.
16. So it's there, the documentary.
I think we're celebrating now 10 years actually of
Legalization.
cannabis in Brazil, where so the market started asking for the product in 2013, and in 2015 illegal came to place, and then Anvisa started getting involved. So it's been a decade almost, and we have things to celebrate and still things to move in order to be better.
Anvisa, it would be the equivalent to the U.S. FDA, of course.
Yeah.
So perfect. So passing the ball now, and I'll be the midfielder here during all talks, to my homeland in Rio de Janeiro. Clarice, what about yourself? I know most of the job you're doing nowadays with Sairama is on the psychedelic side of things, but of course there's also cannabis in the work. So Clarice, huge pleasure having you. And Clarice by Clarice, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Alex and Marcelo. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today with so many experienced people. It's a great opportunity for me. I'm an economist as a background, but I've been working with biotech projects since 2009, 2008, when I had my first startup company. And that company was founded inside the Federal University here in Brazil. And in that stage, we were developing with technological centers, biotechnologies for the pharmaceutical industry. And in that first startup company, my role was to structure the projects with the scientists. And that first company was sold for a Brazilian pharmaceutical industry. Now I'm CEO of Sairama, and I will take the opportunity to talk a little bit about Sairama, if it's okay for you.
Sure thing.
But perfect. But Sairama is a R&D company focused in psychedelic science. And we identified that there is a lot of high impact projects and researchers in psychedelic field going on inside universities and technological centers here in Brazil and all around the world. And Sairama core business is exactly to co-develop those projects with universities and structure the projects since till the stage that they are ready to be transferred for the pharmaceutical industry, for the big scale companies, but especially in our case, as we are talking about human health, Sairama is focusing in mental health. So usually the big scale companies are the pharmaceutical industry. So our main goal in Sairama is to bring alternative therapeutical approach for mental health. And in our portfolio, we have a portfolio with two main business areas. In our first area, what we do is our biotech area, health science area. And what we do is to make a screening of psychedelic molecules to understand their potential and effects in human brain cell models. And when we have good results with that screening, we go to the stage of the drug delivery, and we are focused in co-develop with our technical partners pharmaceutical formulation for that psychedelic molecules. And in our second business area, what we do is clinical studies with psychedelic compounds here in Brazil. And our main goal in that area is exactly to bring good and strong scientific data for our regulatory authorities here to try to help and contribute to open up the doors with Anvisa and make that discussion updated and with good data. So that's it, guys. And if you want to know more about Sairama and about our projects, I invited you all to follow us in Instagram. We have an Instagram, it's @Sairama Science. So if you have the interest, please find us in our social medias. Thank you.
Thank you. And you forgot to say that Sairama is part of the Green Hub family.
Exactly. We born inside the Green Hub, so we are a venture builder. We are part of Green Hub.
That's right. And for those, by the way, that do not know the Green Hub, pretty much we consider ourselves, first of all, an education company, kind of like what we're doing right now. We're a consultancy company, but we're also an accelerator. So that's, and currently we have 19 companies that belong to our group. Did we lose Roy?
Yeah, we lost Roy.
Yeah, I think so.
I believe he's back. He's coming back. Okay, that's part of the fun. I mean, losing people virtually, coming back people. Roy, you're back. Can you hear us?
Sorry, guys.
All good?
Apologize.
No problem, man. You're just back. I mean, for your round of introduction. So, Roy, who are you exactly, and what have you been doing these last couple of years within the cannabis industry? And first of all, I mean, just a joke. I know exactly who he is, but congrats, because I mean, as an entrepreneur, Roy has taken one of his business to the last level, which is an IPO, and anybody that has done so deserves my applause. So, Roy, take it away.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. This is a thrill to be connected to Brazilian cannabis in any way. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you very much. Yeah, you'd expect a guy who has an IPO under his belt to have a stable internet connection, maybe, but for whatever reason, that's not happening for me today. Hopefully, I just switched to my phone hotspot, so hopefully we won't have that issue. As you can see, it's pretty windy back here. We've got some issues locally, but to give you a sense for who I am, kind of like Clarice, who's an economist who has jumped ship into psychedelics. I am, my background is I'm a lawyer. I don't practice law today, but I am a cannabis entrepreneur now. So I sort of made a jump from a traditional field into the exciting world of cannabis. I started a company here in Colorado in 2015, right as Colorado started its recreational legalization of cannabis. We had some success here in Colorado. It was a bit difficult and we didn't have a lot of money. So we moved the company to California and to San Francisco and the Bay Area. And grew the company. Don't get me wrong, it was very difficult. It was not an overnight success, but we grew the company slowly to become at the time, the top selling branded cannabis company in California. We had 4 of the top 5 selling edibles products in California. And like Alex said, I was lucky enough to then use that success to take the company public in Canada in 2018. So in 3 short years, we went from startup here in my kitchen in Colorado to selling over $1 million a month in the process, but very exciting to be part of course. And once I had done that, I exited. The company was called Plus Products. I exited that company. And I had been a lawyer in Buenos Aires 12 years ago. Seems like an entire lifetime ago. But I was a lawyer at a law firm in Buenos Aires. I knew lawyers in not only Argentina, but Uruguay. Obviously, Uruguay is an extremely interesting place, being the first country in the world to legalize at the federal level. And I saw it as an opportunity to do what I had done here in the United States, but take it to South America. I love South America. I loved living there. And I saw it as a sort of an opportunity to take the 2 things I love and combine them. And started a company called Flora Americas in 2019. So that was 3 years ago. I've been running Flora Americas for the past 3 years. We have offices here in Denver. We also have offices in Montevideo. We are connected to contract manufacturers around the world in Latin America, Colombia, for example, Uruguay, like I said, but also in Europe and here in the United States. We work with, at Flora Americas, we had a lot of success working with existing companies to develop products for them, and then find contract manufacturers who were GMP or EU GMP to sell those, to manufacture those products, and then the company then takes them and puts them on shelves in places like Peru, Spain, wherever. So we had some success doing that, but it was very difficult. International cannabis is very tricky, as everyone knows on this call. And so recently, we found a way to strategically merge Flora Americas with Beehive Venture Cannabis Group. And today I am the president of Beehive Cannabis Venture Group. Bradley obviously is a co-founder. He's on the call today. Beehive is a venture group in two ways, right? One way we provide capital for portfolio companies. Obviously, everybody needs capital in cannabis today. So we have that as one part of our business. And then our other business is sort of to create collaborations within the portfolio companies. So market expansion, for example, a hemp growing company in Uruguay now can sell flowers to Israel, for example. So we look for market expansion within the portfolio and also provide professional services to the portfolio companies if they need them. So that could be legal, accounting, investor relations. Bradley will talk in a second about his experience with compliance. Obviously, this is critical for any company looking to export cannabis from Latin America. And so we provide that as well, auditing services and things like that for portfolio companies. So I don't know, that kind of gives you the sense for where I've come. I've raised a lot of money in the industry. I've deployed money in the industry and really seen it develop here in the United States. But I really focus on the global cannabis industry more so than the United States. Of course, I know what's going on, but much more interested in places like Brazil than I would be in, let's say, Oklahoma, for example.
Right. Perfect. And actually, two quick comments here. Beehive and the Green Hub, they seem alike, very much alike in with in the sense that we do leverage and create synergy among other companies and try to create this network of companies working together. That's one point, and we'll explore more as we move forward. And the second thing is now that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but now that you moved to Beehive, your wife runs the show in Flora America, right? So you have a boss now. Well, you always had, if it's like my case. But anyway.
Some days the companies work well together, some days they don't. No, I'm kidding.
No, but just the point is that your wife is now ahead of the your former company, not your former company, but
that's right. She was chief of staff from the very beginning, so it was a natural sort of fit for her to ascend to the CEO level, knowing all of our partners, all of our clients, everybody internally, and it's obviously easily, we find ways to discuss, have impromptu business meetings over dinner, for example, and get things done. So,
and what's her full name in case people want to connect through LinkedIn? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Laura Yanamini. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. So, last but not least, on this first round, I'll pass the ball to Bradley. And Bradley, first of all, please confirm, since you're in Texas, is really what they say it's the best barbecue rib in the United States. Is that true or false?
That is a true statement, and it also goes for chili. So we have the best chili, we have the best barbecue.
Roy disagrees. But anyway,
we could have an entire episode about this debate, probably.
Bradley, what about you? Where do you come from, and how did you get involved in the industry, please?
Yeah, so I'm Bradley Bernard. I'm from Texas. You might be able. I don't know if you know my accent is Southern. They consider it here in the U.S. Yeah. So. I kind of took the long route to get here. I have over 20 years of compliance and regulatory experience, 10 of it with the United States Department of Agriculture, or over 10 years there, and then over 10 years as a compliance and quality for the food industry, and directing companies there on their food safety. So with the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, I moved up the ladder quick, and I was able to be in several different sub-agencies for the USDA. One is the Agricultural Marketing Services. The other is Food Safety Inspection Service. Then I went to the Office of International Affairs, and then also Animal Plant Health Inspection Service. So I have a view from both lenses, industry side regulatory and then government regulatory. How I made it to the cannabis world was kind of an experiment. I had some health problems in the family, so I had to resign from my government job. I started a consulting service for food, and while I was doing that, I was contacted by a large vertically integrated cannabis operation in Arizona, the farm in Sunday Goods. They contacted me. They were in trouble with the state, who regulates cannabis, and they had got a little creative with their what's called a facility agent cards, and they had some contractors there, and the state showed up, and they didn't have the right identification. Long story short, they got put on probation of sorts. Had to sign a consent, and part of that consent was to have a compliance director on site at least 3 days a week. So I was contacted really through LinkedIn by the HR director from the farm, and intentionally I was planning to go back to the government. So I enjoyed my work there, but I was interested in the cannabis industry. And I thought there was two things that were kind of taking off at the time in the U.S. There was cannabis and then plant-based foods. So I wanted to explore that a little bit. And so I said, what the heck? I can go to work this cannabis job. If I don't like it, I can always go back to the government. Well, so when I went to work for the cannabis company, what I found was a lot of the systems and processes that I utilized and regulated in the food industry also could pass over to the cannabis industry. Things like, quality management systems, environmental health and safety programs, security programs, product defense, all these different types of things that could be in place that really correlate with the food industry work for cannabis. So that's what I did is I went to this company and I started implementing all of these processes and systems. And what I found was a lot of the FDA GMP rules. FDA is America's Invisa. A lot of the FDA GMP rules all can work according to cannabis. So I started applying these things. I got I had 25 team members trained in HACCP and GMP for cannabis. And we took off from there and created a very strong culture of compliance and a very strong culture of quality in the company. So once I was had that going, I was connected with Ken Grams, the manager of Beehive Cannabis Venture Group. Yeah. And we decided to come together and add a compliance advisory services platform to Beehive. So I've built that out, and we're ready to deploy our compliance and advisory services across internationally. Because Beehive has members or partners throughout Colombia and South America, I've been able to become more engaged in the international side of things, besides just being involved in the U.S. So that's kind of how I made it there, and that's how I kind of started getting into the national side of the business. So I'm very happy to be where I'm at now and to work with everybody.
Thanks for sharing it. And well, since we're getting personal, you've also been you're also a veteran, right, in the military, right? So I think that's very interesting because it has a lot to do with purpose, I guess, and adding to how you got involved.
Yeah, so a couple of things I have passion for. Of course, number one, protecting the consumer of food or protecting the consumer of cannabis. The personal reason that I'm involved in the cannabis world is because as a combat veteran, Desert Storm, Desert Shield, I've seen a lot of my brothers and sisters through the military who have PTSD and also opioid addiction. And so I've seen what cannabis can do to avoid the opioid addiction and also comfort and help people with their PTSD throughout the day. So that's really what my passion is as far as that goes.
Thanks for sharing. I thought I'd bring that up because that's such an important component about the industry that we're trying to build, right? I mean, a different industry, an industry that's it is about making money and profit, but it's an industry that overall needs to, think ESG wise, looking at the what we can do, the plant can do to nature, good things that the plant can do to nature, and also helping people overall. So thanks. I will my next round, and since I'll invert the order here real quickly. Marcelo mentioned that he's been in the industry for 7 years. That's like dinosaur years in terms of cannabis industry. Very somebody that's been there for quite a while. Marcelo, my point for you, and I'll circle this around with Roy and Bradley quite soon, would be looking backwards since you started like day one. I mean, what's the recap? Sometimes in Brazil, I get confused if we're moving forwards, if we're moving sideways, or sometimes we wake up, we look and say, well, sometimes it seems that we're moving backwards, right? What's your vision on looking back and where we stand today?
Yeah. I don't think we're moving backwards, but I think we're moving slow. I would say that's the thing. We could be moving much faster than we are. Like I said before, being around for 7 years, I see evolution. I see a lot of evolution. We see evolution. You've been around not for 7, but for
5-ish.
5 at least. And we see evolution. The thing is that for some reason, Brazil boxed cannabis sativa L into one regulation, one imprisoned regulation that puts every type of cannabis in the same box, from hemp, from a seed that's only protein, to the plant that has, 30% THC. And that's not good, because when you put everything in the same box, when you talk to people think it's all the same thing. People think it's going to get you high. People think it's going to, if you eat it and if you use it as medicine, and everything is THC based. Not saying, far from saying THC is bad. THC is good for many treatments and for many reasons, but we don't have an adult use in Brazil. So what we need to do is unbox that. So Anvisa did that with CBD and some cannabinoids. So the RDCs that we have, the permission that I said about the mothers using CBD for their kids, is taking from that box that is called Portaria 344. Taking it out for a little bit. So So they take it out and they let you work that, but they keep the rest boxed. So we need to unbox hemp seeds. We need to unbox hemp seeds for foods, for drinks, for cosmetics, for we need to unbox cannabinoids and let a little bit more. Not that we don't need the doctors, but we need to have more options. We need to have more products in order for it to cost less. We need to start making Brazil produce. A lot of people think that growing cannabis is the thing but no. I think we need to to put everything together to make a supply chain happen, to make a market happen in some ways, understanding the potential of cannabis in many ways, industrial, in medicine and everything, and then create opportunity for growers to come in and start growing and selling their products. I think it's the second step. So I think the movement now for us to go a little bit faster is that people understand how important it is to unbox cannabis from that Portaria 344 and let people create, so the country will collect from that. We'll collect taxes and generate jobs and generate opportunities. We can study more, we can invest more, everybody will be happy. Everybody will have access to that. There's nothing wrong with that. So as soon as people realize that, and as soon as people let us work more, I think we can go in a faster pace. And I'm confident in the next couple of years we can do that.
Yeah, and for those who are not familiar with what's going on in Brazil, and the reason Marcelo, and I started with Marcelo, is that nowadays in Brazil, only medical cannabis is a possibility, okay? So we're trying to move the agenda further on the industrial side, hemp-based economy, for that would be wonderful, opening Brazil, to a world of opportunities, for example, in the fashion industry, cosmetics, food, drinks, you name it. We're big-time agriculture powerhouse here in Brazil, so hemp, and we're far away here in Brazil about discussing adults / recreational use. So this is just to put it in perspective why and make even more sense. And I totally agree with the vision that Marcelo just told us. So Roy, to you, and of course now taking this from a U.S. perspective. So you've been in California, for example, where adults use recreational has been there for a long time, medical, industrial, so same perspective. So when you started back then and to where we are right now, in specifically if you want to focus this time around in the U.S., what's the perspective from your opinion?
Yeah, well, just to quickly, before I get into the United States, I would also say, just to kind of dovetail with what Marcelo said, part of the problem, at least, and I don't want to tell you guys what's happening in Brazil, you know better than me, but, when I think about Brazilian cannabis, one of the problems, like you were saying, it'd be nice to have a supply chain internally. I know there are some Brazilian companies that have facilities, possibly import oil from Colombia and refine it there. But when you're talking about patients that want CBD oil for epilepsy, let's say, right? This is an incredibly powerful drug for epilepsy, right? We know that we know that this is true. But if you have to obtain a prescription from a doctor to get an import permit from Anvisa, to have it shipped to you directly to your address, it's very expensive, right? All of a sudden now you've got to pay not only the American price, but also the tariffs and taxes on the importation. And then maybe I'm wrong, but then I think you also have to go back to the doctor to get another prescription for your next refill. So, there's so much, friction in the system for people to get their so I agree that building supply Brazilian patients access therapies that are very useful. And it's been frustrating to see that wasn't happening for so long. Of course, we were looking at options from Uruguay and Mercosur to maybe lower the trade tariffs and things. But I look forward to the day when Brazilians grow the CBD, extract the CBD, and make the oil for Brazilian patients. So we are very much aligned there.
So do we, my friend. We look forward very much.
Yeah. And it's not, look, it's not just Brazil. Of course, other countries are like this. Peru is very similar, just as an example. So it's not just Brazil, but of course, it's such an exciting time now, I think, in Brazil, maybe, that we're seeing these changes. There's so much opportunity. It just, again, to say what I said at the beginning, it's a thrill to be connected to you guys and Brazilian cannabis and the Green Hub. For the United States, it's interesting in the United States right now. You have large companies so no company in the United States is a national company, right? Because you can't be, right? Each state is like its own country, right? So you can be a multiple state operator, but not a national operator, okay? So some companies are in multiple states. That is challenging by itself, right? If you, for example, like Bradley was saying, he's helping a grow facility in Arizona, right? They've got great flowers in Arizona, but it is illegal for them to take those flowers from Arizona and sell them in Colorado, right? So if a company wants to be in both states, they have to have partners or their own facility who grows in those states and extracts in those states and makes the products. So the overhead is high, right, to produce these products. We also have tax problems. I won't get into it, but there's a US tax code provision that makes it even more difficult for cannabis companies to deduct business expenses on their taxes, changing the mathematics of how to be profitable. That's very hard. Also, we have regulations that sometimes don't make sense. Regulators say, okay, you can sell THC vaporizers with strawberry flavor. Great, everyone makes lots of them and starts selling them. Then all of a sudden, the regulators say, nope, can't do that anymore. 30 days, all of those must be off of the shelves. Well, that's very difficult, right? All of a sudden, you've put money into the packaging, you've put money into the products are on shelves. What are we supposed to do with these products now, right? So it becomes a very difficult operating environment. Also, and this affects everyone on this call, whether you're United States, Brazil, wherever.
Right.
We have a banking problem.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about that. Is it a big taboo, still a challenge, the banking system dealing?
So let me kind of explain the truth in the United States, right? Banks bank the industry. So we have banks. Flora Americas has a bank. Beehive has a bank. There are companies that are public in the United States. Curaleaf, for example, $2.1 billion market capitalization. Of course, they have banks. It would be impossible to do that without banks, right? But we don't have other things, traditional banking services and products like loans to finance the purchase of equipment, right? Those are out there, but they're not as common. If you want to build a facility, you probably can't get debt to build the facility. You actually have to get an investor to give you money to build the facility. So these things are hard. Plus, the investors that are out there are limited because some investors cannot touch cannabis. That's just their fund says no, right? So even though they have, for example, institutional capital, so you talk about pension funds like retirement funds, these funds have billions of dollars, right? If they could carve out $50 million for a fund for cannabis, that would be great, but they can't. They cannot. They have publicly funded pensions and they cannot touch it because of the banking. So we have banking, of course, but we don't have like real banking, if that makes sense. And that makes it very difficult, I think, to access capital that entrepreneurs need to build companies. Also, even if you are in the United States today, even if you are operating well and you are profitable, there is like a guilty by association with all the other cannabis companies out there. So, you know, investors have lost money and don't want to be burned again. So it hurts even good entrepreneurs today that we've had sort of problems in the last few years. I don't know if that answers the question. I can talk about this a lot.
No, totally. I would just like, you know, slightly moving to Bradley's perspective. And Bradley, of course, if you don't want to go there, don't. But it seems to me that there was a big expectation around federalization, right? To make it federal, like from the current Democratic government that is in power. And apparently that promise was not delivered yet. And it ties into a little bit of the issues that, you know, Roy was just mentioning. But again, what's your perspectives, you know, looking back on the mirror and when you started and where you see the industry today? And you can go all over the place, by the way, if you want to, you know, from the U.S., I know that you know a lot about Colombia, for example. You know, you're close to Mexico. You know what's going on in other places. So, floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. So as far as challenges goes, or you know where we've come from, the companies that are surviving are the ones that are always on their feet, ready to move and ready to pivot, because there's a complex regulated environment because of all the different states with no standardization. So it's hard to you know to maintain standards with cultivation, distribution, marketing, sales. You know, it's all across the board. And then the other challenge, also to add on to what Roy was saying, the banking side. You know, they're hesitant to provide anything because of there's the federal prohibition of cannabis, right. And then it makes it difficult for, like as Roy said, for loans and credit and payment processing. There is a act that's moving through Congress. It's been shot down, but it's still not dead. It's called the Safe Banking Act. And one of the big reasons they have that is not only because of the services that the industry need. What's happening is it's a security risk for a lot of the dispensaries that are having to operate solely on cash. So there's a lot of cash on hand, and it makes them a target for robberies and you know, things of that nature. So you have to have top-notch security plans and top-notch security technology to you know, keep yourself safe. And it's just not safe for the individuals that are having to transport, you know, cannabis to other locations. It's a big risk. And then also the other challenge is because of there's no standardization on product quality and safety, right? There's inconsistencies across the board. You know, somebody may be following one standard, another company may be following another standard. There's just no synchronicity with them, and it's made it difficult for companies to adjust. You know, some of them are just kind of picking the best things from one, and then, you know, ignoring the rest of it. You know, and then going to another standard. Oh yeah, we like that one, and kind of building their own standard, but it's not consistent.
Does that comment work both for so-called medical and adult? Does it apply to both non-standardization of does it apply both ways in your vision in the U.S., North America in general?
Well, the way I see it is a lot of companies process everything medically anyway, even if they're going to sell it as recreational, because the medical has a little more stringent requirements most states, and so a lot of companies just make the decision to not even worry about keeping this product medical and keeping this product recreational, and make it all medicinal. And then even if they buy,
because I'm looking at Marcelo here, the reason is here in Brazil again, we make that distinction all the time. I know it's not a big deal as much. I mean, there's people that say, well, there is no such thing as medical cannabis, for example. Everything is medical. People say a bunch of things, but over here we're forced here in Brazil to make that distinction all the time.
Reason I ask.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some big, opportunities right now. I think this is not just U.S. but internationally. Is the innovation is a hotbed. New products, new technologies, delivery methods. All of these topics, and of course the social equity side of things, are all affecting the industry, and there are definitely opportunities for companies to step in and take on those opportunities and grow their business, and provide social equity, that those that have been impacted by the war on drugs. So
Very much. Good point.
But like Roy said, Curaleaf, these multi-state operators, those are the successful cases. Canopy Growth Corporation has market capitalization of over $6 billion, and it's expanded into multiple countries. Cresco Labs, they've got a market capitalization over $3 million, and they're developing innovative products and technologies, and definitely expanding their market share through acquisitions and the development of their products. Roy mentioned Curaleaf. I'll just add that they've got over $8 billion and has been successful in expanding their footprint and developing new products as well. So those are three examples of companies and cases that have made the right decisions, and they're also able to operate in more than one state.
Excellent. Those are the benchmarks that we're looking for at all times, right? So at this point, I'd like to, loop in Clarice. I know she has a few, questions for both you guys. So Clarice, please come in and take it away.
Yeah, I'd like to address a question for Bradley now. Bradley, your experience in compliance and regulatory aspects in cannabis area is impressive. We could understand that during your talk and during your introduction here today. And I would like to have your thoughts about Latin America now, how you see our scenario here and the advancement of regulatory aspects here, considering your experiencing globally about cannabis area. How you think we're gonna figure out the things here in Latin America? And if you could especially talk about us here and your thoughts, it would be great for us to have your thoughts.
Yeah, so two things come to mind is the EU GMP certification and comparison of EU GMP to US GMP. They're very similar, except for EU GMP has a few more components than the US. But I would like to see, companies that we have, like I said, standardization that all countries can lean on, regulations based on studies with supporting documentation as to why you make the decision, even SOPs for different parts of the business. There's a growing need for people to understand it, and the other big thing is making sure that you create that culture of compliance and culture of quality in your business, right? I see some companies are lagging internationally because they just haven't, got to that point to where, they're getting going, but they haven't gotten to the point where they're thinking as far ahead as, making sure you have senior management commitment to stick back your quality and compliance group on standards. It has to come from the top down.
Mm-hmm. It's important to hear your thoughts being a startup company, because how you think the startup companies should prepare themselves to be in the field, to be in the area with quality control aspects and compliance aspects, especially for small companies that need to think globally, and how we should prepare for that?
So there's a few things that I recommend for companies, and one is get as close to what's called ISO 9001 quality management systems as you can. Even if you can't achieve that certification, or they won't come certify you because you're a cannabis company, just the same thing can apply from regular companies to cannabis companies. So developing that quality management system is going to put you ahead of a lot of the requirements from states and federal, right? You're actually going overboard. Same thing for laboratories with what's called ISO 17025. That's the standard for laboratories, and there again, if you're doing things according to 17025, then you're not going to have any problem from a regulator or a certifying body when they come to audit your facility. I might also add there's also another ISO, ISO 9000. It's a technical standard, and it's all about maintaining your equipment. You're buying sanitary designed equipment that you can clean, and your waste management and maintenance and those types of things. So all those together make a good ISO pie that will put you ahead of the game, no matter if it's EU or US.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So now I'll jump for financial area, and Roy, I'm really happy to have other economists here in the conversation today, because usually when we are talking about technical aspects in psychedelic field and cannabis field, usually I'm alone. And but considering your experience in structuring an IPO in a company in US, and could you share with us your trajectory during the structuring of the IPO, and how you are thinking about the ecosystem now? If you can have some clues about psychedelic, it would be great. But the ecosystem investments in cannabis area now, are the investors happy? And how is the feeling of the investors now in the area?
And just before you go for it, Roy, just detail that he went IPO in the Canadian stock market, and why Canada? I think I know the answer, but I mean, how come Canada and not your own backyard in the US?
Yeah. Okay. So
On top of
there's a lot to unpack here, but let me start with that answer, because that's straightforward, Alex. So the reason why we chose Canada, so this is a unique part of the US. It's related to the banking problem. It's a unique aspect of United States stock exchanges right now. Whether you're talking about the NASDAQ or the NYSE, doesn't matter. Both are the same. If you have cannabis operations in the domestic United States, you cannot be listed on those exchanges.
right.
If you have operations globally, though, you can be. So it's interesting because a company like Aurora Cannabis or Canopy Growth are listed on the NASDAQ. I believe maybe the New York, either way, they're listed in the United States. And those exchanges, of course, that's where you'd like to be. That's where you get a lot of retail interest. You have a lot of volume. You might have coverage from different firms. Of course, that's where you'd like to be, but we did not have that choice. So that answer, the answer to that question was given to me. It wasn't something that I chose one or the other.
Right.
Okay, so circling back to the trajectory, let me start with that. That was very, honestly, that was extremely tricky. We were with Plus, we were one of the very first IPO cannabis companies. At the time, what people were doing were called RPOs, reverse takeovers, where you had a small, for example, a small lithium mining company in Canada that then would merge with a cannabis company and turn it into a public company.
Right.
Not long after that, everyone on the call might remember special purpose acquisition companies, SPACs, were out there. Famous cannabis SPAC that I love to talk about is Clever Leaves in Colombia had a SPAC for $252 million. I believe today they have a $13 million market cap. So it shows you that those things happened. There were various ways to go public, but we chose the traditional IPO. The reason being, we thought the story was stronger that way. Also, frankly, if you go the IPO route, your shareholders are not diluted as much as they would be in a transaction with another company. So we wanted to go that route. Going public was an incredibly difficult experience and interesting for me. The first time I've ever taken a company public. It is not that different than raising money at a seed round, to be honest with you. I mean, of course, the pressure gets bigger and bigger as you go. But you need a clean story, right? You have to have a story that investors understand, number one. Number two, you have to have a very good, what you would call a data room, right? For due diligence. You have to have your employee agreements taken care of, your shares taken care of, non-disclosure agreements taken care of, your accounting taken care of, right? Because all of these, you guys know as entrepreneurs, things happen along the way.
All sounds very familiar to me. What you just said. We're currently living that as we speak.
Okay, all right. See, so you have skeletons in your closet, maybe. Everybody has, all companies have these things, but you need to be able to explain them. You need to have your narrative sort of correct and concise and sharp, so that as soon as you bring in an interested investor, every way that they touch the company is excellence, right? So that it's like, okay, I'm interested, now I want financials. Within 30 minutes, financial statements are back to the investor, right? My goal was always to look like we were ready for you the second you came in the door, right? And we wanted you to feel like the company just was excellence everywhere. It's difficult to do, but it's the type of thing that starts from day one. It's easier to do at the beginning and do correctly than it is 3 years down the road coming back and trying to fix these things, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, that was really important, making sure that we were clean, or as clean as we could be, of course, working our way towards the IPO. The IPO process was very difficult because we had an operating company in California that was owned by a holding company in Nevada, which is another state near Las Vegas is in Nevada, if you've heard of Las Vegas. Then we had a British Columbian Canada company owning the Las Vegas company to get to the exchange. So we had to create different companies to do that. That was difficult. We also had to, once we got there, we had regulators in Canada looking at us, but also they hired regulators in the United States to look at us. So we had lawyers from both Canada and the United States, accountants from both Canada and the United States, all crawling our books and looking at them. So again, it's critical to being not dirty in like a criminal way or anything. Just where your weaknesses are and be ready to explain them away, if that makes sense.
So it's a big merger at the end of the day, right?
No, so there we had to string together mergers. So we were owned by a Canadian company, yes, but the merger did not happen at the time of IPO. No.
I see. But what about, and this is something that I've been through this, not at that level, but I've been through a merger and acquisition process myself in my past days of internet days. That's where I come from, digital world. What about leadership? I mean, was it a challenge? I mean, to get alignment around leadership from different companies and different, I assume, different cultures, as you said, companies from different states. What was your perspective on that?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a great question, because that is maybe the hardest part. Not just leadership, but culture. And I don't mean different places. I mean the company culture, right? So, so you have this two-part problem as a company, right? On the one hand, you're trying to grow. Growing and scaling a company is very hard. But on the other side, you also have to focus on all of the investment stuff, when your next round is going to be, or if it's IPO, of course, then regulators. So it's hard because you have so many different demands for your time that it's easy to be pulled away. And if you're pulled away from growing the company, the whole thing can fail. So you have to make sure you're doing the scaling of the company correctly, and that requires good company culture to even have the good fortune and good luck of having an IPO coming your way, right? So you have tension on both sides. It takes great leadership. For me, I brought in somebody who had experience doing that. Of course, we hired him. He became the CFO about a year before going public. And we worked together, and I learned a lot from him. His name is John Paul. He's an amazing friend of mine today. But I learned a lot from him during that process. I did the hard work, maybe the heavy lifting. Right. But sometimes you need that experience from outside the organization. And it's difficult as a founder of a startup to sort of recognize that the moment is getting big, and maybe you need somebody else, maybe you need more experience, and allowing yourself to say that and hire somebody and share that burden. So there are a lot of challenges, I think, just in the people of doing something like that. Yeah.
For sure.
To kind of answer the other questions really quickly, because I know I'm going on. I think are investors getting back, or the question was, are investors satisfied? I think.
If they are happy now with the investments.
So that's an interesting question too, right? Because I think some people have made a lot of money, so of course they're happy. Right? But some people have lost a lot of money, so of course they aren't happy. I think the investors who are most satisfied today are investors who took a long view and who were interested in being a part of sort of this new wave of natural medicine and natural wellness. Investors who maybe were typically into software and tech companies, and they want to double their money in 2 years.
Yeah, they are really
quick-minded. It doesn't work in this industry. We are not software, right? Like we have to grow plants, we have to build buildings to make products, and we have to sell products and carry accounts receivable and sell things. And it's not code that then I have no costs of goods sold and I just sell you you download it and go. We have real costs of goods sold and different models in this industry. So I think at first everybody thought, oh, we're going to all get rich. Let's do this. Now I think people are, those types of investors are realizing that this is not the industry for them. And I think, again, the investors who came in, for example, family offices, investors who are interested in ESG, things like job creation, other things like that are I think still feeling satisfied, maybe feeling frustrated because it's taking so long, but still, I think they're feeling at least satisfied with the work that the companies are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know, did I cover all the questions? Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was perfect. Thank you. But for sure, we're gonna need open-minded investors in our area that wants more than only figures, but to bring together. And my last comment is we are in a roadshow now with Sairama in a really challenge budget.
By the way,
in a really challenge budget for us here in Brazil, being a small startup company here. And we are talking with lots of investors from Brazil and from abroad, and it's been a really interesting experience for us. And how do you think about the availability of resources for our area now here in cannabis? And I'm not sure if you have some comments about psychedelic field, but how do you think about the availability now of resources in the market?
I guess what Clarence is trying to say, how is the mood for investment right now around the world?
I'll be in a hard time now.
Are in the bad mood? Is it a bad time? Is capital available? What's going on? I mean, we're just trying to double check here from our perspective as well.
I'll just say quickly, I'm a positive person, so I look for positive things. I think it is, I think there is some reason to be optimistic and positive right now. I think, look, it's a better time right now to be small because you need less money than, let's say, these big guys that have lots of overhead already and are not profitable, so they need money just to keep the lights on, right? I think now there's certainly more opportunity to find investment for startups. I also think, and this is just kind of a plug for Beehive and also the Green Hub, because we have similar sort of things going on. This is also a time for collaboration and finding ways to work together to maybe in the past you could have had $500,000 for that project, but instead finding a partner who can take that with you, maybe, that those opportunities are certainly out there. Everybody's looking for ways to find, to move their company forward. And I know the Green Hub, you guys do that really well with your ecosystem. And we are doing similar things with Beehive. And I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic there because you never know where a partnership will take you also, right? So in that way, it's sort of a reason to be positive. I think specifically for psychedelics, I think it's more positive than it is for cannabis right now. At least that's true in the United States. I don't know if they'll go on similar trajectories, and maybe 4 or 5 years from now it will be similar. But I do think there's more positivity right now with investors for psychedelics than there maybe are there is for cannabis. I don't know if that's true. Again, that's just kind of my feeling, but I believe that that might be true. I'll turn that over to you guys and let you take it from here.
Well, about the collaboration and building an international network, I guess we couldn't agree more. We've been doing that from day one, right, Marcel?
Exactly, yeah.
I think, Clarice, did you go around the room? I mean, did you talk to Bradley? I got lost a little bit. I apologize.
First,
yeah, Bradley, yeah, the compliance. You guys talked about compliance, yes. No, because I know Marcelo has a couple of questions here, some are follow on what we're already talking about. But
I think my next question comes related to everything that we talked about so far, and it's a compliment. And it's, how do you balance the potential risks associated with operating in the cannabis industry with the potential rewards of it, both for the company and for investors? So that's the first part. And what do you see as the most promising emerging technologies or trends in the cannabis industry? And how is your company positioning itself to take advantage of them?
Is that for me?
That's for you, Bradley.
what's your bet, my friend? What's your bet?
I believe there's significant opportunities for growth and profit, but it does come with risk because of the legal and regulatory landscape. I think some of the balancing the risk and rewards, some of them are, well, one is, like I said, the legal and regulatory risk. Cannabis varies depending on the jurisdiction, and it's important to stay up to date with the federal laws and local laws to maintain compliance. The risk includes strict licensing requirements, product labeling, advertising restrictions, misbranding, and all those things can be mitigated by seeking legal advice and having strong compliance protocols. Then there's the financial risk. It's challenging due to the stigma attached to the industry. The traditional lenders are hesitant to offer loans, but if they do, they're usually at higher interest rates on a lower valuation. So there's looking for alternative financing like angel investors, venture capital firms, and private offices. And then the buzzword Roy mentioned earlier, collaboration. That seems to be the buzzword for 2023. The other risk is the health risk, right? So being that it's a psychoactive drug, it can have long or short-term effects on your health. There's still studies out. Still no one has died from cannabis, but you got to ensure that your products are tested, labeled. You got your COAs. You've got your child-resistant packaging, so things aren't, it's not going to minors, but it's definitely not marketed to minors. So you've got to keep those things in check to reduce the legal action and protect the reputation of your company. One small recall can, damage, cost way more than it costs just to bring it off the shelf. The recall, risk to your brand is substantial. Plus, when the government gets involved, then there's going to be some pretty hefty fines involved when they start coming in and regulating things. Let me think.
Well, I guess the other part was, what's your bet? What are the
emerging technologies?
The emerging technologies. Trends, yeah. What if you had like a pile deep of money? What areas within the industry do you think will do best?
I think digging into the research and development, utilizing Well, it's hard to say, really. It just depends on the location. But I think research and development's big. I think getting being open to the psychoactive industry, and then the like innovative technology. Right, it's constantly evolving and getting better. Like for instance, one of our partners, Zeocon. They can take your flower, and what would normally take 6 to 9 days to cure, they can do it in 6 to 9 hours at high volume, right? So, companies like that, companies like Geomat that are reusing your water sources, environmental friendly, those types of things are going to be important.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Bradley. Now I have a question for Roy. 2 questions in one. What are some of the key factors that investors typically look for when considering investments in the industry? And how important is the marketing and brand strategy for that?
And back to people. I mean, if you could start how important, from your perspective, is leadership? The team. Is that score from 0 to 10, 10 being the, most valued?
Yeah, these are deep questions, guys. I'll do my best. I think for me, I think leadership is, if you're going to go 1 to 10, I'll say 10 because I'm a leader of the. No, I'm kidding.
You're biased. You're biased on that one.
Biased, yeah. I'll give myself a good, powerful note there. But no, I think it's critical. I will say, just briefly touch on leadership. Look, I like you guys. I've been in the industry for 8 years now. That makes us like dinosaurs. You guys know, at first there were not many professional people in this industry. It took a while. You look at this call today. We have incredibly, an incredible amount of expertise sitting here on this screen alone. And all of us have backgrounds from outside of the cannabis industry, right? So I think leadership is critical because this is an industry where regulators have a very focused view. They want to make sure we do things correctly for good reason, of course, that's, you've got to comply with government regulations and you've got to run a real business, right? And so I think leadership is critical, especially now when the industry is kind of finding its way forward in this difficult period. And frankly, some weaker companies are going to die. And so I think leadership really makes a difference today, and maybe is more important today than it used to be. But again, I think I'm biased, so just take that for what it's worth. To answer the other questions, let's see, what investors are looking for today. I think that in some ways it's not different than other industries. Investors want, just like I said, good leadership, good companies. But what they're either looking probably for one of two things, right? Innovation, or a company that actually has the infrastructure to deliver right now within their country. So, when we talk about Brazil, for example, as the regulations loosen and as there are companies that can farm hemp and extract CBD and make products, those products don't necessarily need to be the most innovative product today. We just need a company that can get that product made and get it to market, right? That alone is a good company today, right? So, so sometimes you want innovation. Sometimes you want just a really solid infrastructure company in the market, licensed and ready to go, right? I also think, so for innovation, and this kind of touches on where I think trends and where we're headed, where I would put my money if we're talking about innovation. Of course, everybody likes to talk about yeast and other types of ways of creating cannabinoids naturally. I don't know if that can be done at scale. I know the Green Hub happens to have a company looking at this, SynBD. So I know that there are companies out there. I don't know a lot about the technology myself, and I don't know if it can be done successfully, but it's interesting, of course. If we can create CBD in a big, dark container with just some liquids, that would be a lot better for cost than farming it under very high intensity lights inside, right? So that's an interesting thing. I also think minor cannabinoids are very interesting. So CBN, CBG, CBC, I will tell you right now, we think maybe is an accelerant sort of cannabinoid and very effective for cosmetic use. So I think minor cannabinoids are also very interesting, and not all psychoactive. So they may be, maybe we can find ways to move these and do some of this in Brazil someday in the future. So those are the types of companies I think people are least interested in right now. I think as investors, you're always looking for smart investors are always looking for the downside scenario, right? Like, okay, if this doesn't work, are there assets that we can sell and get money back if it fails? So having, for example, intellectual property, like if you have Flora Americas, for example, has a patent application, a PCT international patent application on a osteoarthritis product for animals. If you have some type of intellectual property, you can potentially tie that to an investment so the investor can walk with an asset if the company goes under. That at least de-risks the investment for the investor, makes it more interesting. So those things are important, I think, if you're lucky enough to have ways to do that. And the last question was...
Yeah, it's on the communication side. How important is branding and marketing today, and how difficult it is, because we know it's really difficult to market and brand things on cannabis, right?
Yeah, I think it is difficult. You're totally right. When you're talking about things like Instagram and Meta having their rules against cannabis posts, Twitter just changed their stance on it. You can now advertise. Who knows? It's very difficult. In the United States, I will say a way to increase your brand awareness that people are doing are free sort of merchandise at the stores. So if you go to a store to buy, for example, flour for a joint or something, maybe there's a sales rep there who gives you a free ashtray with the brand on it, right? Or a lighter, or a T-shirt or something, right? So that creates awareness about the brand. There are also ways to do like micro influencer campaigns on social media, but it's very difficult. It's just a difficult way to. It's very expensive to build a brand. And I don't have many silver bullets for that solution today. No.
Imagine that. Time. And it takes time to build awareness, right? I mean, it's a solid brand. Impossible to do it like from one day to the other. People, I have just been told here that we've been talking for an hour and a half now. I wasn't expecting that. Time just flew by, really. I got surprised. I thought we were in the 1 hour-ish zone, but we're not. So what I'd like to do now is to start saying, goodbye, round table, and with the following message. I mean, we all work in this very challenging and disruptive industry, right? Cannabis, psychedelics, full of taboos, right? We didn't even go there, right? I mean, it's full of taboos, full of how can I say that? I mean, people don't avoid talking about marijuana, for example. We go cannabis all the time, but we hardly say marijuana. In Brazil, we call it maconha, right? So in cannabis, so the street names. And why don't we do that? Because there's a stigma. There was a lot of bad advertisement, on top of this plant for many, many decades. So although, and we're slowly changing that around. And my thing is, and if we could, go really quick around, starting with you, Marcelo, crystal ball looking for what kind of industry would you like to see, 3-5 years from now, and say, well, that this is the kind of industry that, are aligned with my values and anyways, I'd be proud of an industry that would look like what in a perfect world, of course.
What we know is, and we talked about it a few minutes ago, is that we need to understand that it's always going to be a super regulated industry. So anybody that comes in has to know that it's never going to be different than that, and it has to be like that because everything we say here, everything what Bradley says, and we need to work with that. We know that, like everybody said, if you come into this industry to make money the next couple of years, don't come in anyways. That this is something for 10, 20 years from now.
There's no quick buck.
No quick buck on this industry. So saying that, so we know it's so hard, and when we know that it's going to be so difficult, that's always going to be regulated. We need to keep educating so people can understand, and we don't make this over-regulated industry slow. That's what we don't want. It doesn't mean that it has to be regulated, it has to be slow. I think we need to quickly understand, and everybody that's involved with government and the countries have to understand the opportunities that we have in front of us. So if they give us the opportunities to work in this hard over-regulated industry, we're going to make things happen anyways. But we need to speed things up. So that's my dream, that people understand, take the stigma out, start understanding what, the opportunities that we have, and then we'll be able to work and make things happen.
Yeah, and information and education is the key, right?
The key is the most important thing. So, but people, people need to want to be educated as well. Like it doesn't help if we try to educate and people don't want to listen.
That's right.
So, but I see a bright future ahead of us. I can measure that by doctors. When you start seeing doctors involved and start seeing doctors respect and understand and learning how to prescribe and doing a good job on that, we see that it's going to work somehow. Because if we can make things in the medical side happens in the professional way, then the other ones are going to be much easier. So I see a bright future for all of us.
Yeah. I like I've mentioned, I believe during this talks, I come from the IT industry, the internet. So I compare these two industries this way. When the internet started, like back in the 90s, 95, the commercial internet as we know it, right? It was all about creating an installed base, so year after year was like, oh, now we have 5% of the world is using internet. Next year would jump to, 15%. And all of a sudden, pretty much the entire universe is connected to the web. The opportunities were there. Now on the cannabis, the installed base is already there. People use cannabis since ever for many reasons. And like you said, it's about shifting from unlegal to legal and breaking the taboos that are around the plant. And Clarice, what about you? Yeah, go ahead.
No, just the last thing. I like a lot what Bob Hoban says about cannabis. When you talk about regulating and making it legal, and I love that, is taking cannabis from the hands of people that are treating cannabis really bad and bringing it to the hands of people that want to treat it really good. So I think it's that, you're just going to shift things. You're going to just bring it to people that are going to know what to do with it with quality and with P&D and with research and everything. And I agree. I totally agree with that. We just need to start treating cannabis better.
Has a lot to do with, I think Bradley mentioned a war against drugs briefly there. We didn't even go there, but has a lot to do with that anyhow. Clarice, what about you? What are we doing here? Are we creating an industry to help a lot of people and make people lives with more quality? What's your dream here for the industry that we're creating? Especially here in Brazil, I guess.
I hope that we can go faster, Alex. Bringing the topic for psychedelic, that's in terms of regulatory aspects that are so synergic with cannabis trajectory. I hope that we can put together startup companies, large-scale companies, scientists, traditional knowledge, to open up in a fast-track way the doors of Anvisa and FDA and all the regulatory authorities all around the world, to tell them, okay, guys, we have an important role here, and people are waiting for that. As Bradley was telling us minutes ago about the PTSD with the veterans in the US, we have same horrible situation here in Brazil. In our case, because of our urban violence, horrible numbers, we have lots of people with PTSD here and other clinical targets so important like depression, anxiety, and all of that aspects in terms of mental health and in terms of wellness, not only about mental health, but wellness too in the psychedelic field. So we need a fast track for that. We need people bringing the priority for that discussion. And I hope that we can go faster. That's my hope.
I'm older than you, so I hope even more that we can go fast. I can't stick around enough. We have to move forward. I love to see Brazil and, like a state like São Paulo and Rio going through the process that, for example, New York is going through right now. And hopefully I'll be there and see that happen. Bradley, it's your turn, my friend. Before we say bye for now, I guess we could keep on going forever, but thanks so much. I mean, first of all, to our guests on behalf of the Green Hub team here, myself, Marcelo, and Clarice, having you two guys was fantastic. So thanks so much. What's your dream world looking forward, man? Besides all that good barbecue that we mentioned in the beginning.
Well, personally, I would like to see the Veterans Administration that takes the hospitals that take care of our disabled vets. I would love to see them be able to have the ability to, just prescribe medicinal cannabis, to the veterans and make it, right now the federal law is blocking that, of course, but so many veterans could benefit from that. So that's one of the big things I'd like to see. But I just want to see people start to, have some sort of international standard that, we can all follow and all be in sync and doing things similar and safely. And, I think that'll be the big thing whenever that ever happens, right? Because then it'll be easy to pick out the ones that are doing things right and the ones that are doing things wrong, right? And weed them out. But anyway, I would be remiss, though, if I got sidetracked a minute ago. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you what I was thinking about the emerging technology. So the testing and analytics we discussed. So another biggie is cannabis delivery services, right? There's a growing demand for convenient and discreet delivery services. Investing in a reliable security platform might be something to look at. Of course, cannabis and extract and processing is always moving forward. Partner yourself with those guys. Become or get in with a company that's on top of the regulations according to cannabis packaging and labeling. Partnering with those guys, you can really position yourself. And then which we all know about the cannabis infused products, right?
Right.
Investing in the research and development, like I said, and partnering with those guys, there's a lot of exciting products coming out. So anyway, I wanted to jump back on that real quick, but I would just like to see the medicinal cannabis available to everybody worldwide.
Good. So do we. Actually, Brazil, on that respect, is going towards a very interesting route. We have just here in São Paulo, for example, passed a law to make cannabis products available through the public health service. Okay, so people will start getting, less privileged people, part of the population, will start having access to cannabis products in the near future. So, same page. I mean, make it available. Roy, last but not least, close it up, and who knows, we might someday go through another route of IPO, perhaps in an international. Let's take that aside. Let's make it happen someday. I would love to take that picture with you. I don't mind going to Canada, back to Canada. Actually, I have roots with big time roots with Canada. Yeah, long time story. So I'd love to do that. But congrats, my friend, and congrats for your work.
Be shooting for. Yeah, look, I'll keep it quick. What I would like to see, and it's relevant to everyone on this call, I would like to see Brazil, similar to what you guys are saying, become the leader in South American cannabis. Brazil is it's the economic engine of South America, right? It is the country where really, the cannabis industry could find a really powerful ally in Brazil moving forward. And I would like to believe that that's coming quickly, like you guys are saying, faster than slower. And then, of course, I hope the Green Hub is perfectly positioned to take advantage of that trend. So that's what I would like to see. I mean, there are a lot of things I'd like to see, but truthfully, I think that if Brazil can really become the leader that South America needs, it could drive a lot of positive change in the cannabis industry globally.
Well, half the population of Latin America, half the GDP, depending on us. Well, that's what we do every single day. But thanks so much, guys. I mean, and thanks. With that said, I mean, I guess I will conclude this third episode here, the first international episode, season 2023 with Roy. Let me say everybody's name correctly this time around. Roy McFarland, Bradley Bernard, my buddy Marcelo Greco, and Clarice Pires. My name is Alex Lucena. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. See you next time.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.